topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Hello, listeners. This is Divya, and super excited to be with you. As always, this is a fun time for me. And for those of you who have got our books, thank you. I am traveling and I'm on vacation, so you're not going to see my regular background. And I just want to say thank you for anyone who has got our books, because here's what I'll share. That you buying our books is super important because part of the profits go to help entrepreneurs from kiva.org. So folks, if you've got your copy, Expert to Influencer, Entrepreneur's Garden, or any one of our books, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because we are all part of something bigger. We are helping somebody. You are getting value from it. And as part of that, we are also helping entrepreneurs. And I invite you to share 1 hour of your time every month. No strings attached. Help somebody. And let's spread that kindness. Think about it, just 1 hour, even if 25 million people do that in the US alone. Every month, it's 25 million hours helping others and spreading kindness. So, and I want to thank each and every one of you who has done that and shared their stories with us. So I want to share a story about Linda. Thank you, Linda, for reaching out to us and sharing your story. How did she take her 1 hour of her time and she helped in her daughter's school, helping in building the landscaping? So powerful. So folks, doesn't matter where you're volunteering, how you're helping, how you're supporting, it makes an impact, it makes a difference. So let's bring on our guest, LaTisha. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Excited to have you, LaTisha. So we always start with a little moment in the childhood. Do you recall a moment from your childhood where you were super naughty, or there was an incident that still is as fresh to you as if it was just that day that it had occurred?
I do actually. I was outside playing with my sister, and I believe it was summer. I remember it was warm outside. My parents were across the street at a friend's house, but they were outside, so they could see us, but we were, just playing around. And I remember I decided to run across the street. Now, there weren't any cars around, but at that time, at the age that I was, generally speaking, I was supposed to have an adult holding my hand to cross the street. And I remember my sister saying, "Oh, you're going to get in trouble. Like, don't do it." And I was like, "Oh, I'm fine." And I did. I ran across the street, and I kind of looked to see if my parents were paying attention, and they were engrossed in their chat at that point. So I didn't get in trouble, but I do remember that I just felt really free and confident and a little naughty at the same time. Like I was doing something that I shouldn't have done.
Oh, I know the feeling, because so many times in our cul-de-sac, we would just be standing and any one of our kids would be running around and parents were in sync. We would yell at our kids like, hey, look on both sides before you
Right.
run across. So definitely a little naughty moment. I'm glad that everything just kind of turned out well. So as you grew up, or as when you were a little child, like, did you have any ideas like, oh, I want to go become a doctor, or I want to be in the fashion industry, or I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a cop? Did you have any of those kind of aspirations?
I didn't. Unfortunately, I really did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just always had this vision in my head of me in a white suit, so like a white blazer, white pants, and a briefcase. And I just remember I was walking up a flight of stairs. I don't know where those stairs were going, but that was just the vision that I had in my head. And as I got older, I started to think, okay, maybe that means I am in charge of something. I have a briefcase. Maybe I'm a CEO, or maybe I'm a lawyer. There's something that I've got to be in charge of. But unfortunately, I really didn't know what I wanted to be, which kind of led me to discover a couple of different things. But everything led me to where I am today.
That's fantastic. And in the not knowing lies the knowing, because you are spending time discovering yourself.
Mhm.
So everything is okay, because look at you today. You have turned out to be a wonderful person, a wonderful entrepreneur. So it led to something great. Now, share with us, what were those couple of things that you went through?
So I once thought, well, I love my teachers, so maybe I'll go into teaching. And I started working with children. I worked with kids at daycares. I, also babysat when I was younger, did some babysitting for the kids across the street. Um, and after I did that, I realized that even though I really, really enjoyed it and I love teaching and I love nurturing, I didn't see that as my career, because I still, once again, had this vision in my head, and I never saw any teachers with briefcases. So I knew that that wasn't quite it. So from there, I sort of fell into retail and kind of thought maybe that meant I was going to go into the fashion industry and maybe be a buyer for, retail stores. And then I realized that that wasn't it. And I decided, okay, well, maybe I just need to go back to school so I can get a better degree, because at the time I had a Spanish degree only. And I thought, well, if I go back to school and get an accounting degree or a finance degree, that will lead me to that vision I see in my head. And I did. I got a finance degree. And when I graduated, we just happened to be in the greatest recession since the Great Depression, where no one was really hiring finance graduates. So at the time, it was like, the timing just wasn't working quite right. And I remember telling myself, well, if I can't find a job, I'll create my own. And that's a little bit of a longer story, so I won't go into too deep into that. But that is the process and the thought and the statement that really led me to creating my own business, becoming an entrepreneur. Even though there was a lot of pitfalls along the way, it really started with that statement and that declaration.
Very powerful. Like, if I don't find what I want, I'll create it. And that's
Mm.
fantastic. Something for our listeners to take away from that. It's not about giving up hope. It's not about losing what you want, keeping it in line of sight and going after your dreams and your passions. So share, like, how did you get into entrepreneurship and a couple of mistakes that you made in the initial years of your entrepreneurship?
Sure. I started out just by creating a finance blog. That was what I understood. I just graduated with a finance degree. So I said, well, I'm just going to start writing articles online about what I know. And maybe this will turn into something. If anything, it will be an online portfolio for a company to look at and see, wow, she knows what she's talking about. So I started writing that blog. I eventually did get hired for a full-time position in the finance industry. But the blog started to become my passion, and I continued on that path, continued writing content, and then decided, well, I'm going to quit this job. Even though I had been there for a couple of years at that point, I decided I'm going to quit that job and, look to take my blog full time, because I really enjoy it. And I think if I go full time with it, I can make it work. That worked for a couple of months. I had about 6 months of savings. So that worked for about 8 or 9 months. And then what I realized was that I didn't quite understand business and business models and really how to generate revenue from what I was doing. And that was a big lesson for me, one that required me to go back to corporate America and get a full-time job again. And at that point, I had a taste of entrepreneurship. I understood what it felt like to set my own hours, to be able to wake up when I wanted, to work on stuff that I was really excited about, and to see the people who are changed by what I was creating. And so it was difficult for me to take a step back into corporate America because I knew that there was more out there for me. So from there, I kind of set my sights on making my way, back to being an entrepreneur, a full-time entrepreneur. So this time I decided to reach out to a mentor. I actually purchased a course first, and then I started working with a mentor in their coaching program, and they taught me the different business models that I could do as at the time I was an influencer, a blogger. So they helped me to understand what that business model looked like so that I could take that and put that in place for myself. And I saw the vision, I saw the future so clearly after that point that that's when I decided, after 3 months into that new job, I decided to just quit again, burn the bridges, and say, I'm going to make this work no matter what. And I got my first client in sort of freelance work to help them doing what I was already doing, which was creating content and running social media. So I started that up. And from there, I just continued to follow not only what worked, but follow the proven business model, which was create content, work with brands, which is what I was doing as well, work with one-on-one clients, work with group clients, offer teaching. And I sort of fell into sort of like the coaching and consulting world based on what I was doing, the audience that I was building, and where I was finding success.
That's delightful. So now there are a lot of people who think that entrepreneurship is dreamy. Entrepreneurship is, such a wonderful place to be. And yet we get some bitter lessons from it. And folks, I gotta share that I've had several of that, because I closed down one of my companies and then started one more, and then, okay, this is going, let's expand, started another one. So one of the lessons that I learned was that you cannot do it alone. It's very important. And you mentioned that you connected with a mentor and worked with them. So that was like one of my lessons. So from that period of time, what would you say were your top 3 lessons for anybody who's thinking to start their own business?
Yeah, so that first one is don't try to do it alone. Definitely hire someone who understands the process and has been where you want to go. It's similar to hiring a guide when you want to travel. They're going to tell you what to pay attention to, what to avoid, and it will just allow you to get to your destination that much faster, safer, and usually with a lot more enjoyment because you have that support along the way. So that's the first thing that I would suggest. The second thing is similar to what I said before, like look at what are the proven business models so that you understand what you want to establish, what you want to create, and really how you want to show up. Everyone is not cut out to be, in front of the camera every single day. And maybe that's not something they desire. Some people would like a business model where they're able to sort of be behind the scenes. And so it's important to understand how your personality fits in with the type of business that you want to create and that you want to grow. And the final thing that I would suggest is to just make sure that you understand that you are going to be a forever student. Entrepreneurship is about personal development. It's about understanding yourself, developing yourself, but also going from just working on yourself to then learning how to develop a team. And as you move through each of those phases, you will continue to learn, you'll continue to grow, and it will be a struggle at times, but it's one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Mm, amen to that. Like, I definitely agree with you on that, LaTisha, because some days it can be really tough and difficult, and yet I wouldn't give it up for anything. You talked about that you may think like, you meaning like, people who are getting started, and they may think like, oh, I don't know how to get started or what's happening. And so many times what happens is that they're limiting beliefs that prevent people from being successful. So in your experience, can you share 1 to 3 limiting beliefs that has stopped people?
Sure. I find that limiting beliefs, also known as like subconscious blocks, there are a couple of very prominent ones that a lot of people can relate to. One of the biggest ones I'll share is one that I often struggle with, which is called addiction to struggle. And this limiting belief is when things are going great and things seem to be going well, there's something inside of you that chooses to go back to your old patterns because there's something about the struggle that you enjoy, that you like, that kind of makes you feel good in an odd sort of way. And it's that addiction to struggle that can prevent you from just enjoying when things are good and they feel good. There's another common subconscious block or limiting belief, which is the fear of greatness. And that's understanding that you do have greatness within you, and there are big dreams that you have and things that you want to accomplish, but you're a little bit scared as to what is going to happen when you do accomplish those things, with relationships that you might need to get rid of, or people who might be affected by your success. And a lot of times we allow that fear of greatness to prevent us from moving forward. And
Mhm.
then another subconscious or limiting block is fear of failure. And this is a very common one where, you're so scared of failing that you don't move at all. And there's a block, or there's not necessarily self-sabotage, but being paralyzed, right? So you feel a little bit paralyzed to move or take action because you feel that you have a fear of failure. And so those are just a couple of the most common blocks. But there are ways to overcome those. You never completely eliminate them. You will continue to struggle with them, but it'll just be at a different level, a new level, and you'll be better equipped to deal with it. But it is something that is going to be a part of your journey.
Absolutely. And that is so true. And let's kind of like go from there into creating a brand, which is one of my favorite things because that's what I help people with. And to me, brand is not just about logos and colors and fonts. Of course, it's important to have those, have the consistency. It's about building that reputation, not only building it, but earning it. And think about it. What is it about Target? What is it about Macy's or your favorite stores or like a particular favorite jeweler or for that matter, a car mechanic or your hairstylist? What is it about them that makes you go to them? And here's the thing, folks. Once you like and once you trust, it's about like, no trust factor. Then you have established that with a brand. You keep on going back to them even if they raise the rates. So, for example, let's say I love Trader Joe's for some of the things, and have the prices gone up during inflation? Yes. So, I might buy a few less things like anybody else, or you may cut down on some of the things, but you don't give up your brands. So, let's look at a lot of entrepreneurs. What happens is they are limited by those limiting beliefs that you have talked about, especially fear of failure, fear of greatness, that, oh gosh, can I charge so much? Can I raise my prices? So, can you share those 4 levers that you talk about that people can adjust so that I'm not saying people should raise the rates, but they can position themselves for the high ticket clients?
Absolutely. In marketing, positioning is everything. As you mentioned, what makes you have an affinity towards Target or Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or whatever it is, it's all about that positioning and how you see yourself in the reflection of that business. And when it's time for a business owner to look at their rates, to, maybe raise their rates or really start charging what their services are worth, there are four main levers. And that includes understanding who you want as a client. So being clear on your ideal client, understanding what you are planning to offer them. So being extremely clear on your offer and that it is transformational, that is absolutely going to change their life, whether it's a product or a service. Understanding how to attract them, how to speak to them. So that is your messaging and being really clear on your messaging, which I think you just sort of mentioned right there when we're talking about branding, because it's not just your logo and your colors and fonts. And then finally, having a repeatable process for enrolling those clients or bringing those sales in. And that's simply with the sales system. So with each of these pieces, the sales system is going to give you the confidence that you're continuing to have clients come in. Your messaging is going to make sure the right clients are coming in. The offer is going to make sure that you are providing the best transformation for that client, and understanding who that ideal client is going to make sure that they can benefit the most from your offer. And so when you have that positioning quite just right, where each of those four pieces are extremely dialed in, it makes it that much easier to provide the service or provide the product for that client, because at almost any rate, if it's the right thing for the right person at the right time, they'll absolutely see the value in it. Now, obviously, we're ethical in our rates and what we want to charge, and also what we want to put out there. But often, what I find when I work with clients is that the price that they put on their service is extremely low in comparison to the transformation and the change that it makes in someone's life.
Absolutely, very valid points. And one of the things that I want to point out is transformation. When you talk about what you are charging is worth what you're providing, what you're providing gotta be transformational, as you mentioned. Because when you're resolving that problem, when you're changing somebody's life, when you're impacting them, then people will gladly pay for it, as I mentioned earlier. And it's similar, like, for example, think about, like, especially if you watch Shark Tank, guys, you will see there's so many different products that bring ease and simplicity into people's lives. So I really like what you talked about, the offers, so critical, and then also like sharing it with the right person. Because if you're not sharing with the right person, it's not going to land. So for example, let's say if you were going and selling, let's say if I were to tell, like, hey, I'm a barber and I really know how to shave your beard. So people are going to take a look at me and say, what the heck? She doesn't have a beard. What the heck does she know about beards? It's important to make it relevant, to add to your piece what you shared. And now, okay, these are the four systems. How can they translate these four levers into actions?
Sure. So one of the first things that you can do is obviously take a look at the clients that you've already started working with, or if you are just getting started, just take a moment to write out the description of your ideal client, not just the demographics of, how old are they? Do they have children? But really starting to get into more of what are called like the psychographics. So, if they were in a certain situation, how would they react? And my favorite way to do this is to write out a name for my ideal client and then write like a short story of why that person is in the situation that they're in, what made them decide to start looking for me or start looking for a solution. And then ultimately, why do they make the decision to say, yes, this is what I need. This is why I need to work with LaTisha. And so when I have that story, that really helps me to get very clear on the person that I want to speak to. As far as practical for the messaging, I think one of the best ways to get clarity on your messaging is to write it out. And honestly could be just writing out the outline of a book. I think almost everyone has a book inside of them that they need to bring to life. And it's about, just writing out from start to finish, like, what is the message you really want to share with the world? How do you want to show up? How do you want people to perceive you? As far as getting clear on your offer, that's a little bit more of an involved process, but it starts with understanding the end goal and how do you want the client to feel as a result of you guys working together. What are some of the things that you'd like to accomplish during that time frame? How is their life going to be changed? I like to do an exercise that I call expensive versus expansive, and what that means is, what are the other things they could purchase other than your offer? So things that are more expensive than your offer, but are kind of related, right? So there's, for example, kind of going back to the barber example, there's other ways that people could feel like they look better, right? If cutting your hair makes you feel like you look better, there are other ways that they can do that. And those things could be more expensive, meaning you could, go to a plastic surgeon and they could, take all the hair follicles out, and that would make you also not have the hair. So you would start listing out what are those other things that are more expensive that the client could do. And then you would list out what makes your offer more expansive, meaning why is this way of getting that same transformation more expansive, better, in terms of the emotions and, spiritual, like all the different realms and possibilities, like what makes this offer better. And then finally, for a practical solution for sales systems, honestly, that's just kind of sitting down, knocking it out, maybe working with someone who understands, sales pages and funnels and all of the little pieces that go together so that when someone finds you, they can get in contact with you and then ultimately convert. And it's a lot of work. And I know that it can feel overwhelming at times, but honestly, every journey is just a small step, one step at a time. And then finally you make it to your goal. So as long as we continue to look at things that way and understand that we're always on this journey of personal development, there's never going to be a there that we need to get to. We're simply taking a step, one step each day at a time. It makes it feel a little bit more manageable.
Absolutely spot on. And when you talked about book, I was definitely nodding away, because here's the thing, after having written so many books myself and having a bestseller for straight 33 months now, and helping other people, like, gosh, we have helped over 170 entrepreneurs write the books. Books is definitely the way to go, folks. And the reason I'll tell you why is because blog may be like, small piece of content. Blog requires as much thought, content strategy, content calendar creation, all that. It requires a ton of planning. And yet there's something about the book that not only is cathartic, but it helps you hone into your message. So you have shared some great tips. If you were to give like 1 to 2 practical tips, LaTisha, that our audience could take and walk away with and implement it today, what might those be?
I would say the first practical tip is to do an evaluation of where you are and where you want to be. I know we kind of started the conversation with, that the childhood and the vision that I saw myself as, and understand that you might have a similar vision where you see where you're going, but that vision can change over the years. So instead of running full force down the wrong path, or as I told a client today, pushing a boulder up the wrong hill, let's really evaluate like where we are and where we want to go, and make sure that we're still every day kind of checking, like, is this where I want to go? Yes. Okay, great. What's one small step that I can take to get there? And I guess that would be the second practical tip, is to determine each day, what is one small practical step I can do to reach my goal? I like to write down 3 things that I say, what would make today a win? And then I write down those 3 things. Okay, today I want to work on this. I want to finish this out, and I want to do this one thing. And as long as I complete those things, I'm like, okay, great. Today is a win. And if I choose to fit other things in during that day, that's fine. But I've already won for the day. And so, we're, like I said before, we're always going to have this long list of things to do. So remember that it's important for you to focus in on what would make this day a win and take those single small steps each day.
Very powerful. So we have heard great nuggets here today, folks. LaTisha, if people wanted to kind of get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you and where can they find you?
Sure. So you can go to my website. It's you'vegotclients.com. I think we've had it down right there. It's on the screen. If you go there. And I'm also pretty active on YouTube. So I do have a YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/LaTisha Styles. And I look forward to hearing from you. I would love to hear any of the big takeaways that you've had. Feel free to send me an email or DM through any of the contact methods, because I do love talking about this. It was a great topic. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, a pleasure having you on board. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise with us, LaTisha. Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And thank you, listeners, for joining us and listening to our conversation as always, because without you, the show would not be possible. Reach out to us. Let us know what problems are you looking to solve in your life so that we can bring on guest experts to help you live the life you deserve. And thank you, Juan, for making it technically possible. Until next time, take care and be well.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.